Welcome to the Ref Show. It may only be July, but we've already got a big talking point to get into this week at the start of the new football season. It involves a Spanish referee named Alejandro Jose Hernandez, and it's from a Champions League second round qualifying match between Celtic and Linfield. Dean Mohareb and David Hirst with me this week. Dean, what was this incident involving then?
Well, I mean, it's an incident involving, as you say, a Celtic player, Leigh Griffiths, who goes over to take a corner kick. As he goes over to take the corner kick, he's welcomed by the Linfield fans who throw all sorts of missiles, bottles, coins, a couple of lighters. And the referee ends up cautioning him for what we've assumed is delaying the restart of play. I think there might have been a gesture from the Celtic player to the crowd which led to the caution. But either way, whatever the caution was for, it wasn't communicated very well. I would have liked to have seen the referee be far more proactive, increase the stewarding in that area through the fourth official, because his primary responsibility is the safety of the players. So I think for me, he needed to communicate better and earlier and be more proactive to make sure that the players' safety is there. Interestingly, as you say, it's a Champions League game, so there'll have been a UEFA delegate there. So there'll certainly be a report from the delegate around the conduct of the fans. So it'll be interesting to see what UEFA do.
When you talk about the communication, what is the key thing then? Is it in the moment to explain to the player, in this case Leigh Griffiths, exactly what he's been booked for? Or is it after the game, maybe speaking to the Celtic manager, Brendan Rodgers? Because I think he was quoted afterwards speaking to the press, saying he'd not been given any indication what the card was for, and that is why there's this uncertainty. Is it for time wasting? Is it for a gesture? And I think if it was for a gesture, it perhaps wouldn't have got the sort of the talking points that it has there, David.
I think Dean's right. I think it must be for some sort of gesture. I mean, if the referee's looking at it as time wasting, I mean, obviously the items that are on the pitch are unsafe for other players if they're not picked up and removed. You know, and I mean, it's scandalous that this is still happening. You know, in football matches. You know, to get fans throwing things on bottles, like you say, lighters, coins. If I was the player, would I have made a gesture to the crowd? Probably, if I'm being honest. You know, because it's a disgrace, and the referee should understand that.
Yeah, and I think that the learning point here for officials who are watching is that if you're at a game where that's happening, is the first thing is to blow the whistle, bring the player to you, right into the middle of the field, away from it, calm him down, say, look, let's get this sorted. Just give me a minute. Get the full official to fire some extra stewards around there, police. If you've got to put an announcement out to the crowd that if it continues, then the players will be taken off and the game will be suspended, and then come out and restart. I mean, we've seen a game at the end of the season in the Football League where the referee suspended a game, cleared the ground out and restarted it to finish it. So the referee has all sorts of powers, and I'm not saying he needed to go to those lengths in this incident, but I think being far more proactive earlier on, so it didn't get to the stage where, because at the end of the day, if you're being pelted with things, you're going to react, and the referee should understand.
I remember there was a very similar situation a few years ago. I think it was it James Beattie at Leeds United with a bottle? I'm not sure it was James, but it was certainly one of the Leeds players who the bottle came on, he threw it back into the crowd, and that's where the referee went up and sorted him out. Obviously throwing it back in, it's just as bad as getting it thrown on. You know, somebody's going to get hurt.
Does a referee have to anticipate what might happen in a game like this? I think before the match it was expected there will be some issues. Celtic didn't take up their ticket allocation because they expected trouble. Should a match official sort of be fully prepared for knowing what they're going to do in this kind of a situation? And is the evidence here, given the way that this unfolded, that maybe Alejandro Jose Hernandez hadn't prepared sufficiently?
I mean, you're absolutely right. Referees, at all levels should prepare for games. So, not only prior to arriving at the ground, but once you're at the ground, there'll have been a safety briefing with the match commander, with somebody, one of the head stewards. So all these types of issues will have been covered before the game. The referee would say, in these circumstances, this is what I want to happen. The police equally would say, in those circumstances, this is where we'll increase resources. So all of those things are covered before the game. But unfortunately, in this incident, the plan didn't come to action. And I think you're right about perhaps maybe there was a complacency in the approach of the referee, because I was surprised that as soon as the missiles were coming on, that he didn't bring the player away. Because for me, I would have stopped the game.
I think at one point the Linfield chairman was even on the, in that corner of the pitch, trying to calm the supporters down. There was an attempted pitch invasion at the end of the game. And this referee in particular has got some previous with being quite card happy. I think in La Liga last season, 7 red cards in 18 games, 98 yellow cards, David. He clearly likes to get his book out.
To be fair, it looks like he just likes using his cards, to be fair. But, no, hey, I mean, everybody out there, the chairman, trying to calm things down. That's a big clash. You know, people probably not seen it as big a clash as it was, you know, for incidents. You know, so we have to see what the referee's report is and find out, was it for time wasting? Was it for a gesture or whatever, to clear it up, really, because we're only surmising what he's giving the card for.
It would have been interesting as well to see if that had been the corner where the assistant referee was, if the referee had done anything differently. Yeah. Because I suspect he would have done. So, you know, again, safety of everybody is paramount. And I think in those situations, if it was to happen again, this referee and other referees would learn and bring the player away, sort the missiles out, sort the crowd out. Yeah. Better to wait than somebody get hurt, you know, seriously hurt.
Worth noting that Linfield say that they're investigating this incident. They're going to have an internal investigation as to what happened there. You mentioned sort of UEFA's approach, and there's going to be a report. Chris Sutton, the former Celtic striker, has suggested the referee shouldn't officiate at this level, given the way that this was handled. You know, how likely do you think he is to be marked down for a situation like this, or will UEFA have some sympathy with him, given that it's not often that you see a match with this kind of atmosphere?
No, it'll certainly be the assessor at the game, the technical assessor, the referee observer. They will certainly have commented on the incident, and I would anticipate that he would have been offered some advice that if that situation was to happen again, he would be encouraged to deal with it differently. I don't think Chris is right about he should never officiate again. No. It's a bit like a player. Player makes a mistake, you know, you wouldn't write them off for the rest of the career. And it's the same with the referee. Referees only get better by making mistakes and learning from them, and that's actually, you know, how you improve. But I do have sympathy with the player. I have sympathy with Celtic, and I think it could have been handled a lot better.
One of the other issues, David, is that UEFA rules only allow yellow cards to be contested in circumstances involving mistaken identity. So Celtic can't appeal this. Yeah. I guess the only way that this yellow card could be overturned, if it is for time wasting, for example, or if UEFA understand that the gesture was because things are being thrown at Leigh Griffiths, then it's just got to be a common sense thing that UEFA strike it from the record. But, you know, how possible is that?
It's not going to happen. You know, as Dean was saying there, you know, it won't happen. It is what it is now. You have to lick your wounds and get on with it. You know, they'll get a little bit peace of mind from you know, knowing what the reason for the card was, and then onwards and upwards.
Why can't you appeal yellow card? I mean, it's something that we talk about. Like, it's not just an incident like this, but if Leigh Griffiths gets booked in the next game, he misses a potentially very important Champions League match.
Referees would love a system where that could happen. I mean, I remember refereeing a game in the FA Cup, and I cautioned a player for simulation. And on the day, I thought it was a horrendous dive. You know, I watched it back on the DVD, and he'd been fouled. Yeah. So I actually put in my report that I cautioned the player, and having reviewed the DVD, I made an error, and they still wouldn't overturn the caution on my report. So referees would love a system where that could happen, because we don't go out to make mistakes. We go out to get the correct decisions, and if we make a mistake, we want justice to be served, and we're quite happy to say, look, I've got that one wrong. But the rules are as they stand at the moment, particularly in UEFA competitions and FIFA competitions, that you cannot re-referee the game. I think there is a move with video technology and video assistant referee where the powers that be might become more sympathetic towards that approach in the future. But as it stands at the moment, then if the caution's correct in law, it will stand.
I suppose, David, there'd be a lot of appeals every week at every level of football if you could challenge every yellow card, but is it something that you'd like to see considered?
I don't think it is something that I'd like to see. I mean, because we're trying to get a situation where the referee's making the right decision. You know, it's like I've often said, you know, if we get a red card and he's sent off and then it needs to be overturned, the result's gone, done, finished. We can't do anything about that. So, like I say, you have to just get on with the job.
If you're going to do that, it has to be extenuating circumstances. It has to be clear errors where you would do that.
Dean Mohareb and David Hirst with us for the Ref Show this week. In part 2, we'll be looking ahead to the Women's Euro 2017 tournament, and we'll also be previewing the start of the Youdan Trophy.